Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be taking a look at Adidas and Nike.
Two of the biggest names in sportswear.
Absolutely. And, we've been doing a lot of research, reading articles, reports, you name it.
Trying to get a sense of, how these brands became the giants they are today.
Yeah, how they market themselves, what their strategies are, and even get a glimpse into what their future plans might be.
Exactly.
So the goal is to really give our listeners like a 360-degree view of these two brands.
A deep dive.
A deep dive, exactly.
To see where they came from and where they're going.
Exactly. And I think a great place to start is with their origin stories, because both Adidas and Nike have fascinating journeys.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how different their beginnings actually were. Adidas came out of post-war Germany, and it all started with a family feud.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the founder, Adolf Dassler, had a major falling out with his brother Rudolf, and guess what? Rudolf went off and created Puma.
Wow. Talk about sibling rivalry.
It's like the ultimate sneaker showdown right from the start.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, what about Nike? How did they get their start?
Well, believe it or not, Nike started as a distributor for a Japanese shoe company. They were basically the middlemen before they became the kings of sneakers.
That's such a classic underdog story.
It really is. You can't help but root for them in those early days.
Totally. So we have Adidas, born out of family drama, and Nike starting as a distributor. It's amazing how they both rose to the top. But to really get a handle on where they are now, I think it would be helpful to look at some side-by-side comparisons.
Definitely. Let's break down some of those key differences.
Right, so where do we start?
Well, both companies are publicly traded, but when it comes to size, Nike's the clear winner.
So they're bigger than Adidas.
Considerably. They have something like 77,000 employees around the world, while Adidas has around 57,000.
Okay, so that's a difference of about 20,000 employees.
Right. And when you look at revenue for 2024, Nike brought in over $51 billion.
Wow.
Compared to Adidas's $23 billion.
So more than double?
More than double Adidas's revenue. That's a significant difference.
Absolutely. And does that translate to market share as well?
It definitely does. Nike currently controls about 38% of the global sportswear market, while Adidas holds around 15%.
Wow. So Nike really is the dominant force right now.
They are, but Adidas has been strategic in building its empire through acquisitions.
Like Reebok.
Exactly. They own Reebok and TaylorMade, which are both powerhouse brands in their own right.
Yeah, TaylorMade is huge in the golf world.
Right, exactly. So even though they're smaller in terms of overall revenue and market share, Adidas has been smart about diversifying its portfolio.
Right, and on the flip side, Nike has the Jordan brand, which is practically a cultural phenomenon in itself.
Oh, absolutely. The Jordan brand is legendary. And let's not forget Converse and 𝗏𝗏, they're part of the Nike family too.
So both companies have found ways to expand their reach through smart acquisitions.
Absolutely. And that's been a key part of their success.
So we've talked about their origins, their size, their market share. But I'm curious, what were some of those early wins that really propelled them forward?
Well, for Adidas, it was all about focusing on specific sports and creating shoes that athletes loved.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Think about the classic Adidas Sambas or the Stan Smiths.
Oh yeah, those are iconic.
They became classics for a reason. They were designed for specific sports, but they also had this timeless style that transcended the playing field.
Right. They weren't just for athletes anymore. They became everyday shoes.
Exactly. And Adidas's partnership with the German national football team was also a huge win for them.
Oh, that makes sense. It gave them global exposure and that association with victory.
You got it. And what about Nike? What were some of their early breakthroughs?
Well, I've always heard about their Air technology being a game changer.
It was revolutionary. Literally putting a cushion of air in the sole of the shoe for better performance and comfort.
Yeah, and I bet it looked pretty cool too.
Oh, definitely. It was like a window into the future of footwear. And of course, there's that instantly recognizable swoosh logo.
You can't forget the swoosh. That's like one of the most iconic logos ever.
It's simple but powerful, and it helped them stand out from the competition.
Speaking of standing out, what about that story of the banned Air Jordan?
Yes, the legend of the banned shoe. It's a brilliant example of Nike's marketing genius.
So what happened?
Well, the NBA tried to ban those iconic black and red Air Jordan is because they didn't meet the league's uniform regulation.
They were too flashy.
Too bold, too different. Now, Nike could have easily backed down and redesigned the shoe.
Yeah, but they didn't.
They didn't. They decided to lean into the controversy.
Oh, really?
They paid the fines for Michael Jordan to wear the shoes and turned the whole thing into a brilliant ad campaign.
It's like they knew the publicity would be worth it.
They understood the power of being rebellious and standing out from the crowd, and it worked brilliantly.
Yeah, it created this mystique around the shoes and the brand.
Absolutely. It was a stroke of marketing genius.
So we have Adidas with their focus on sport-specific shoes and that classic style, and Nike with their groundbreaking technology and that bold, rebellious image.
It's amazing how they both found different paths to success.
And what's even more impressive is how they both managed to stay at the forefront of the industry for so long.
Yeah, it takes more than just a few early wins to stay on top. You need constant innovation and a deep understanding of your customers.
And that's where things get even more interesting, because both brands are incredibly innovative, but their approaches are surprisingly different.
You're right. It's like they're looking at the future of sportswear through different lenses.
Okay, so tell me more about these different approaches to innovation.
Well, Adidas has this deep commitment to sustainability that really permeates everything they do.
That's interesting. Can you give me an example?
Take their Boost technology, for example. Those shoes are known for being incredibly comfortable.
Oh yeah, I've heard great things about Boost.
And that comfort comes from these unique TPU beads that are used in the sole. They actually return energy with every step.
So it's not just cushioning, it's like a little spring in your step.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing for performance and for everyday wear. But Adidas is also looking beyond traditional materials. They're heavily invested in 3D printing for customization.
Oh wow, so you can create a shoe that's perfectly tailored to your foot.
That's the goal. And they've even partnered with Parley for the oceans to create shoes made from recycled ocean plastic.
So they're not just innovating for better performance, they're also innovating for a better planet.
Precisely. They're trying to create a more sustainable future for the sportswear industry.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
Now what about Nike? How are they approaching innovation?
Nike is also a leader in sustainability, but their focus tends to be more on pushing the boundaries of performance through cutting-edge technology.
Okay, so what kind of technology are we talking about?
Well, you've probably heard of their Flyknit material.
Yeah, it's like a knitted upper for the shoe.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. It was revolutionary because it created this super lightweight, breathable upper without any bulky seams, almost like wearing a sock, but with the support you need.
Wow, that sounds pretty amazing.
It is. And then there's their React Foam and Zoom X, both of which are engineered for ultimate responsiveness and energy return.
So every step feels more efficient.
Exactly. And of course, we can't forget about the Nike Adapt line.
Oh yeah, those are the self-lacing shoes.
Right? The ones straight out of Back to the Future. They actually adjust to your foot using an app.
That's insane. It's like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It speaks to Nike's relentless pursuit of what's next. They're always pushing the limits of what's possible in athletic footwear.
So we have sustainable innovation from Adidas and high-tech performance from Nike. It sounds like both brands are playing to their strengths in very different ways.
And those differences extend beyond their technology. You can see it in their business models, their target audiences, even how they approach generating revenue.
Okay, so let's break that down. What are some of the ways these companies are making money beyond just selling shoes and apparel?
Well, product sales are still their core business, of course, but both have become masters of licensing.
So other companies pay to use their logos and designs.
Exactly. It's a lucrative business. And both have fully embraced e-commerce, selling directly to consumers through their own platforms.
That makes sense. Cut out the middleman, build stronger relationships with customers, and control the entire brand experience.
You got it. But there's a subtle difference in who they're targeting.
Oh, really?
Adidas casts a wider net. They appeal to athletes of all levels, fashion-conscious individuals, younger demographics.
They're trying to be everything to everyone.
Not quite, but they were all about inclusivity and blending sport with style, creating a brand that transcends the gym or the playing field.
Okay, and what about Nike? Who are they going after?
They're a bit more focused. Their core customer is the athlete, the fitness fanatic, the person who wants premium performance gear and that sense of exclusivity that comes with the brand.
So it's like they're saying, if you're serious about your sport, you need Nike.
In a way, yes. They're not afraid to position themselves as the aspirational brand, the one that champions excellence.
It's interesting how their different approaches are reflected in who they try to attract.
It all comes down to brand identity and understanding your target audience.
All right, so we've covered their origins, their business models, but I think it's time to talk about something we all love.
Marketing.
Exactly. These brands are masters of the marketing game.
Oh, absolutely. They know how to tell a story, how to connect with their audience on an emotional level.
All right, so let's dive into that world.
Yeah.
How do those subtle differences we've been discussing play out in how they actually reach their audiences?
Well, even their slogans tell you a lot. Take Nike's Just Do It, for example.
It's so simple, yet so powerful.
It's about that inner drive, that relentless pursuit of goals.
Yeah, it's become more than just a slogan. It's like a life philosophy.
You're right. It's transcended its athletic origins and become a statement about pushing your limits, about achieving your full potential.
Okay, and what about Adidas's slogan?
Impossible is nothing. It has a different feel.
More about believing in yourself.
Exactly. It's about empowerment, support, and believing in yourself no matter what obstacles you face.
It feels more inclusive and encouraging.
And their campaigns reflect these differences too. Nikes are often high profile, featuring superstar athletes and bold storytelling.
Oh yeah, like the Dream Crazy campaign with Colin Kaepernick.
Exactly. It was definitely controversial, but it got people talking and sparked important conversations.
It was a bold move, and it definitely solidified their image as a brand that's not afraid to take a stand.
That's Nike's style. Push the envelope, challenge conventions, and get people thinking. And what about Adidas? Their campaigns tend to be a little different.
Yeah, they seem to lean more into collaborations with cultural icons.
Absolutely, like Kanye West for their Yeezy line or Pharrell Williams for the 𝗁 collection.
It's a smart way to tap into music and fashion to broaden their appeal.
They're connecting with a more diverse audience and aligning themselves with figures who embody their values of creativity, individuality, and pushing boundaries.
So we have Nike going for that big, bold, aspirational message, and Adidas taking a more collaborative and inclusive approach.
It's two different paths, but both ultimately lead to connecting with their target audience.
All right, we've covered their origins, their tech, their business models, their marketing magic. But there's one piece of the puzzle we haven't talked about yet.
Production.
Exactly. Where do these shoes actually come from? Let's talk about their production and supplier networks.
This is where things get a little more complex.
In what way?
Well, both brands rely heavily on factories in Asia, particularly in countries like Vietnam, China, and Indonesia.
That makes sense. It's a cost-effective way to produce large quantities of goods.
It is. But it also comes with ethical considerations that both brands have had to address.
Right. There have been concerns about labor practices and working conditions in some of these factories.
Absolutely. And both Adidas and Nike have faced scrutiny in the past.
So how have they responded to that scrutiny?
Well, in recent years, they've both made concerted efforts to improve transparency and ensure ethical sourcing.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice?
They're investing in technology to make their production more efficient and sustainable, while also working closely with their suppliers to ensure fair labor practices and safe working conditions.
So it's not just about making the shoes, but making them responsibly and ethically.
Exactly. And consumers are becoming more aware of this. They want to know that the products they buy are made with respect for both people and the planet.
It's a complex challenge, but it seems like both brands are taking steps in the right direction.
They are. And it's an ongoing process. There's always more work to be done, but it's encouraging to see them taking these issues seriously.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. Consumers have a lot of power and brands are listening.
All right. We've covered a lot of ground here. From their humble beginnings to their global empires, from their groundbreaking technologies to their marketing masterminds, and even those complex production networks. It's clear that Adidas and Nike are forces to be reckoned with.
They are two of the most influential brands in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And their rivalry has only pushed them to become more innovative and impactful.
They're constantly pushing each other to be better, which ultimately benefits us, the consumers.
I love that perspective. It's like a healthy competition that raises the bar for everyone.
Exactly. And that's what makes this industry so exciting to follow.
So before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's take a quick look at the numbers. We've talked about their size, their revenue, their market share. But what do their financials really tell us about their current standing?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, Nike's revenue for 2024 was an impressive $51 billion. And their net income, the profit they actually pocketed, was a cool $5.7 billion.
Wow, those are some seriously impressive numbers.
They are. And their market cap, which basically represents the total value of the company, sits around $129 billion.
They're a financial powerhouse.
No doubt about it. Now, in contrast, Adidas's 2023 figures tell a bit of a different story.
How so?
Well, their revenue was $23 billion, significantly lower than Nike's. And they actually reported a net loss of $81 million that year.
A loss.
Yes. And their market cap is also considerably smaller, hovering around $43.5 billion.
So while both are global brands, their financial health paints a contrasting picture.
It does. Nike's performance reflects their strong brand power, their direct-to-consumer strategy, and their ability to stay ahead of trends. They're in a very strong position right now.
But Adidas seems to be facing some headwinds.
They are navigating some challenges, but don't count them out. They have a long history of innovation and resilience. It'll be interesting to see how they adapt and evolve in the coming years.
It's like a game of chess. Each brand is making strategic moves, and we're all watching to see who comes out on top.
Exactly. And the stakes are high.
All right, listeners, that's a wrap on part 1 of our Adidas versus Nike deep dive. We've unpacked their journeys from humble beginnings to global empires, explored their innovative approaches to technology and marketing, and even taken a peek at those eye-popping financials. But there's still so much more to explore.
Join us in part 2, where we'll dig even deeper into the fascinating nuances of these iconic brands and their competitive dynamics. We'll be analyzing their strengths and weaknesses, exploring those key strategic differences that set them apart, and examining the factors that could shape their future trajectories.
Until then, keep those sneakers laced up and those minds engaged. We'll be back soon with more insights and analysis in part 2 of the deep dive. Welcome back, everyone. Glad you could join us for part 2 of our Adidas versus Nike deep dive.
We're really getting into the nitty-gritty now.
Yeah, last time we covered a lot of the basics, their origins, their tech book, their business models.
But now it's time to really analyze what those differences mean for their future.
Exactly. It's like who's got the upper hand, who's playing the smarter game.
Exactly. It's like we've done all the scouting, watched all the game film. Now it's time to break down the playbooks.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So let's start with their strengths and weaknesses. Where do these brands really shine and where are they vulnerable?
Well, with Nike, it's pretty clear that their global brand recognition is a major strength, that swoosh is practically a universal symbol of athletic achievement.
And it's not just about the logo. They've really cultivated this image of being relentless innovators, constantly pushing the limits of performance technology.
Absolutely. And let's not forget their roster of superstar athlete endorsements.
Oh, yeah. LeBron James, Serena Williams, Cristiano Ronaldo, the list goes on and on.
It's like a who's who of athletic excellence, and it really reinforces their image of being the best of the best.
And that direct-to-consumer strategy seems to be paying off big time for them.
It is. It allows them to build stronger relationships with their customers, gather valuable data, and ultimately increase their profit margins.
So they're doing a lot of things, right? But every team has its weaknesses. What are some of the challenges Nike faces?
Well, that reliance on big-name endorsements can be a double-edged sword. It's expensive, and there's always the risk of a scandal or controversy tarnishing their image.
Right, it's like putting all your eggs in one basket. If that athlete gets into trouble, it could really hurt the brand.
Exactly. And their premium pricing, while it reinforces their brand image, can also make their products inaccessible to some markets and demographics.
So they have to be careful not to price themselves out of certain segments of the market.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance. Now let's shift gears and talk about Adidas. What are some of their key strengths?
Well, they have a rich heritage in the sportswear world. They've been around for decades, and they have those classic designs like the Stan Smiths and Superstars that never seem to go out of style.
You're right. They've managed to create some truly iconic products that have stood the test of time. And they've also done a great job of tapping into the world of streetwear and fashion.
Yeah, they've really blurred the lines between sport and style.
And that's allowed them to appeal to a wider audience than just hardcore athletes. And of course, we have to talk about their commitment to sustainability.
Yeah, that seems to be a core part of their brand identity.
It is, and it's a smart move, especially as consumers become more eco-conscious.
So they're playing to their strengths.
Yeah.
But what about their weaknesses? What are some of the challenges Adidas faces?
Well, one challenge is consistency. Their financial performance has been a bit up and down, and they haven't quite matched Nike's dominance in key markets like North America.
It's like they have all the pieces, but haven't quite figured out how to put them all together.
Yeah, and while their marketing is often creative and innovative, it sometimes lacks that singular focus that Nike has with just do it.
It's hard to make an impact when your message is a bit all over the place.
You're right. And they're still heavily reliant on wholesale partnerships, which can make it harder to control the brand experience and can also eat into their profit margins.
So they have some work to do to really optimize their operations.
They do, but they're a resilient company with a lot of potential, so I wouldn't count them out.
Now, despite their differences, both brands are looking at some exciting opportunities for future growth.
Absolutely. The sportswear market is still expanding globally, especially in emerging economies.
So places like China, India, Southeast Asia, those are the markets they're eyeing.
Exactly. Those regions have a rising middle class that's embracing fitness and a more active lifestyle. And both brands see a huge opportunity in the world of personalized fitness.
Oh yeah, all that smart apparel, wearable, tech, data-driven training experiences.
It's like having a personal coach and a trainer built into your clothes and your shoes.
It's incredible how technology is changing the way we experience fitness.
And both brands are eager to be at the forefront of that revolution. But there are also challenges they need to be aware of, potential threats to their future success.
Okay, so what are we talking about? What could throw them off course?
Well, competition for one. New players are emerging all the time, challenger brands, with fresh ideas and unique approaches.
So they can't afford to get complacent.
Absolutely. They need to keep innovating to stay ahead of the curve. And then there are the macroeconomic factors, things like supply chain disruptions, inflation, global instability.
All those things can really impact their bottom line.
They can. And of course, consumer preferences are constantly evolving.
You know, what's hot today might be old news tomorrow.
Exactly. So they need to be able to anticipate those shifts and adapt quickly.
So we've talked about their strengths, their weaknesses, the opportunities they're chasing, the threats they're facing. But I'm curious, what are some of the key strategic differences between these two brands?
Yeah.
What are they doing differently to win?
Well, one major difference lies in their marketing philosophies. Nike is all about aspiration, pushing limits, achieving greatness, associating themselves with the best of the best.
Yeah, their campaigns often feature elite athletes, dramatic storytelling, that just do it ethos.
Yeah.
That's all about reaching your full potential.
Exactly. They want to inspire you to be like Mike, to chase those seemingly impossible dreams. Adidas, on the other hand, takes a more inclusive approach, celebrating individuality, creativity, and the power of sport to connect people from all walks of life.
It's less about becoming a champion and more about embracing the journey wherever it takes you.
Precisely. And this difference is reflected in their collaborations. Nike partners with superstar athletes like LeBron James and Serena Williams, reinforcing their image of elite performance.
It makes sense those athletes embody that drive to be the best.
Right? And Adidas goes for cultural icons, musicians, fashion designers, people who embody that blend of sport and style that's so central to their brand identity.
So it's Kanye West with 𝗍𝗄𝗎𝗄𝗎 with 𝗍𝗏 collection. It's a different kind of aspirational message, but it's still very effective.
Absolutely. And their approach to innovation also sets them apart. Nike is known for their relentless pursuit of performance-enhancing technologies. Flyknit React Foam, Zoom X, their self-lacing obsessions, Adapt shoes. They're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It's like their R&D department never sleeps.
Right. Adidas, while they value performance, also prioritizes sustainability in their innovation strategy. Boost technology isn't just about comfort and energy return, it's also about using materials that are better for the environment.
Yeah, and their Parlay for the Oceans partnership is a perfect example of that commitment.
It's a smart move, differentiating themselves in a market where consumers are increasingly demanding environmentally responsible products.
Yeah.
And their exploration of 3D printing for customization is another way they're trying to stay ahead of the curve.
So it's high-tech performance versus sustainable innovation. Two different approaches, but both aimed at creating products that meet the evolving needs of athletes and consumers.
And that difference in focus is reflected in their product lines as well. Nike is known for their highly technical, performance-driven shoes and apparel. Think Voverflies for marathon runners, dry fit gear for intense workouts, the stuff you see professional athletes wearing.
It's all about maximizing performance, pushing those limits.
Right. Adidas, while they have their performance offerings, also has a strong presence in the lifestyle category.
Yeah, they have those classic casual shoes, their streetwear-inspired collaborations apparel that blends function with fashion.
So they're not just for the gym or the track, but for everyday life, for expressing your personal style.
It's a broader approach catering to a wider range of needs and occasions.
Exactly. So we have aspirational versus inclusive marketing, high-tech, versus sustainable, innovation, performance-driven, versus lifestyle-oriented products. These are some pretty fundamental differences in their strategies.
They are. And they really speak to the core identities of these brands. Nike is the relentless innovator, the performance leader. The aspirational icon, Adidas, is the heritage brand, the style-conscious innovator, the champion of inclusivity. But here's what I find fascinating, because both approaches are working. They're both successful, but in very different ways.
That's the beauty of the market, isn't it? There's room for multiple winners as long as they understand their strengths, connect with their target audience, and keep innovating.
It's not really about which brand is better, but rather which one aligns better with your values, your style, your needs as a consumer.
Precisely. It's about finding the brand that resonates with you, that inspires you to push your limits or express your individuality.
I love that. It's about finding the right fit, both literally and figuratively. But we've explored their contrasting strategies, their different approaches to innovation and marketing. Now, I want to get back to the numbers, specifically their financial performance. We saw some pretty stark differences there. What factors are contributing to Nike's dominance and Adidas's struggles?
Well, there are a few key factors at play. First, Nike's brand power is undeniable. They've built an aura of excellence, of aspiration that's hard to match. That swoosh logo is one of the most recognized symbols in the world.
Yeah, it's like a badge of honor for athletes and casual wearers alike.
And they've been incredibly successful in translating that precisely. Now, Adidas, while they have a strong brand, hasn't quite reached that same level of premium perception. Their pricing is generally a bit lower, and they still rely heavily on wholesale partnerships, which can sometimes make it harder to control the brand experience and can impact profit margins.
So they're not capturing as much value from their products, even if they're selling a lot of them.
Right. And they've had some missteps in key markets like North America, where Nike has a much stronger foothold. They've struggled at times to connect with certain consumer segments and have had some inconsistencies in their product offerings and marketing messages.
It sounds like they haven't quite found their footing in some crucial areas.
That's fair to say. It's a combination of brand power, pricing strategy, distribution channels, and market penetration that has contributed to Nike's current advantage.
And let's not forget the digital landscape.
Yeah.
How have these brands adapted to the world of social media and e-commerce?
That's a great point. Nike has been incredibly savvy in leveraging digital marketing and social media to connect with younger audiences. They've built a strong online presence and are constantly experimenting with new ways to engage consumers.
It's like they understand the language of the internet and they're speaking it fluently?
They are. They're not afraid to push the envelope, to be bold and experimental, and that resonates with a generation that's always looking for what's next.
So they're winning the digital game too.
It seems so. But it's important to remember that Adidas is not standing still. They're aware of the challenges they face and are taking steps to address them.
What are some of those steps? How are they trying to catch up?
They're investing heavily in innovation, particularly in sustainability and customization, which aligns with the values of their target audience. They're also expanding their direct-to-consumer channels and refining their marketing to focus on their core strengths: heritage, inclusivity, and style.
So they're playing to their strengths and trying to carve out a unique position in the market.
Exactly. They're doubling down on what makes them different, and they're also leveraging their valuable assets like the Reebok brand, which they're working to revitalize.
It's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out. It's like a high-stakes game of chess, with each brand making strategic moves to outmaneuver the other.
That's a great analogy, and it's one of the things that makes this industry so dynamic and exciting. The competition between these two giants is fierce, but it's also what drives the entire industry forward.
It's a constant race to innovate, to connect with consumers, and to shape the future of sportswear.
And in the end, we, the consumers, benefit from that competition. We get better products, more choices, and a more dynamic and exciting industry to follow.
All right, listeners, we've explored their SWOTs, dissected their strategic differences, and examined the factors driving their successes and challenges.
We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still one crucial question left to answer: which brand is best positioned for the future?
Yeah, that's the big one.
It is.
Yeah.
And to answer that question, we need to look even deeper into the trends shaping the industry.
All right, so let's do it. Join us in part 3, where we'll tackle that very question and offer our insights into which brand we think is likely to emerge as the leader in the next decade of sportswear.
It's going to be a fascinating discussion.
Until then, keep those sneakers laced up and those minds engaged. We'll be back soon for the final round of the Deep Dive. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's the final round of our exploration of Adidas and Nike.
The moment of truth.
Exactly. We've dug deep into their histories, their strategies, their wins and losses. Now the big question.
Who's going to dominate the future of sportswear?
It's a tough one to call. We've seen how they've taken different approaches, different strengths.
Yeah, it's almost like they're playing different games at times.
Right, so how do we even begin to predict the future?
Well, we can look at the trends we've uncovered so far and try to extrapolate from there.
Okay, so based on those trends, what do you see on the horizon for these two giants?
Both brands are making strategic moves that could really reshape the industry. Nike, for example, is doubling down on its digital dominance and that personalized fitness experience.
Yeah, we talked about that a bit in part 2, but can you give us a more concrete example?
Sure. Imagine your Nike app not only tracking your runs, but also analyzing your gait, your foot strike, your pronation, and then suggesting custom shoe modifications based on your individual needs.
Wow, so it's like having a personal AI coach built into your phone, constantly optimizing your performance.
Exactly. And that level of personalization is something that could really set them apart. And then there's their push into the metaverse.
Metaverse, that's a whole other world.
It is. And Nike's already experimenting with digital-only sneakers, virtual fashion shows, collaborations with gaming platforms.
It feels risky, but also potentially revolutionary.
It is. It's a gamble. But if they can capture that digital audience, it could be huge.
Okay, so Nike's going all in on technology and the digital frontier.
Yeah.
What about Adidas? What's their next move?
Well, we've talked about their commitment to sustainability, and I think that could be their key to winning the future.
So if they can really deliver on those promises of recycled materials, closed-loop production, eco-conscious practices, it could resonate with consumers who care about the planet.
Absolutely, especially younger generations. They're demanding brands that align with their values.
It's not just about looking good or performing well anymore. It's about feeling good about what you're buying and supporting companies that are doing the right thing.
Exactly. It's about that holistic approach. And Adidas seems to be tapping into that shift in consumer consciousness.
And let's not forget their collaborations. They've been really smart about partnering with musicians, fashion designers, artists, people who represent that cutting edge of style and culture.
Those partnerships give them credibility and keep them ahead of the curve in terms of trends and aesthetics.
So we've got Nike betting big on technology and the metaverse, while Adidas is leaning into sustainability and style. It's like two very different paths leading to the same goal.
And that's what makes this race so fascinating to watch. There's no single blueprint for success. It's about understanding your strengths, anticipating the needs of your audience, and constantly innovating.
But there are always those unpredictable factors, those wild cards that could shake things up.
Absolutely. Geopolitical shifts, sudden changes in consumer behavior, unexpected technological breakthroughs, all of those things could impact the trajectories of both brands.
It's a reminder that no matter how much we analyze, no matter how many trends we identify, the future always has a few surprises up its sleeve.
And that's what keeps things interesting. But if we had to make an educated guess, if we had to place our bets on who's best positioned for long-term success.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat here. Who gets your vote?
Honestly, I think Nike might have a slight advantage right now. Their financial strength is undeniable. Their brand power is immense, and they've been incredibly agile in adapting to the digital landscape.
But you're not counting Adidas out.
Definitely not. If they can fully capitalize on their sustainability focus and maintain that cool factor with their collaborations, they could absolutely close the gap.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. And Adidas has proven they have the endurance to stay in the race.
Exactly. And the reality is both brands have to keep innovating, keep listening to their customers, and keep pushing each other to be better.
Because ultimately, we all benefit from that competition. We get better products, more choices, and a more exciting and dynamic industry to follow.
It's a win-win for the consumers, even if only one brand can claim the ultimate victory.
Absolutely. Well, listeners, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of Adidas and Nike. We've explored their histories, dissected their strategies, analyzed their strengths and weaknesses, and even tried to peek into the future.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've given you the knowledge, the insights, the tools. Now it's up to you to decide who you think will reign supreme in the world of sportswear.
Will it be Nike with their technological prowess and that iconic swoosh?
Or will it be Adidas with their focus on sustainability and style?
It's a tough call, but one thing's for sure, the competition will continue to push both brands to new heights.
And we'll be here to cover every exciting step of the way. Thanks for joining us on this epic deep dive into the world of Adidas and Nike. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those sneakers laced up tight.